Ko te kupu tuatahi, me tuku ki te whaia o tēnei hoa o tātou katoa e noho nei roto I tō tātou whare, ara kahurangi raiha mahuta, ko tana kohine tēnei ananaia. He tika tonu me mihi tātou ki ngā wāhine pērā rawa te ikieke I roto I te ao Māori. Tā te mea, ka paupau haere tēnā reanga ki te mate, kātahi tātou ka whakaaro, mo ngā tāngata kua riro, nā rātou ngā kaupapa pēnei poi tō rātou wā, nā rātou I whakapau I tō rātou kaha, kia whakapūmautia te tahi kaupapa, e pai ai te āta noho o te Pākehā me te Māori, I roto I te taiao, I runga I te papa o te whenua. Nā reira kia taunga manaakitanga, ki roto I tana whānau, nā reira e te tuahine tēnā koe. Tātou katoa, I roto I tēnei rangi, I te wā I haere atu tō tātou minita mo ngā take Māori ki tā wāhi, tā moko ai, whakatairanga ai, I tērā o ngā kirimana, e haka pāhongi ana e ia, mā te wā e te tiro, a tōna wā, ngā kēhua. O tēnā kaupapa, kaputa. Nā reira, ka nui tēnei kōrero mo tēnei wā ki tō tātou reo Māori, tēnā tātou katoa. Sir, it's a pleasure to stand and speak on this bill. And I have attended in our Māori language to some ceremonial words which carry the weight of affection that so many of us in this House had not only for Lady Raiha but for Sir Bob Mahuta, who along with Honourable Maturata, Sir Graham Latimer, Sir Tipene O'Regan, in the late 80s took up the challenge and in very many important ways, sir, changed the course of our socio-political history. So when someone of that ilk does pass, it brings lustre to us as parliamentarians to note their passing, because it's not until decades have passed that we begin to study critically the contribution that different personalities make. Indeed, on that side of the House, Mr Bolger, on this side of the House, Mr Longy, Mr Palmer. So I think it's a fitting part of a parliamentary speech that we should acknowledge the contribution of those who are no longer with us. I cannot say the same about the leader of that party, otherwise known as the ACT Party. The ACT Party, sir, today have disgraced themselves in the very venal and ugly way which their leader, in a fit of desperation, sought to explain the reasons why his party don't like this bill. Now, sir, in a democratic house such as ours, we're entitled to bring our differences forward, but for him to demean the plume of Māoridom, the Tainui people, and describe their heritage, their aspirations as hocus pocus, will be back to haunt that man when he stands for election in 2011. Now, sir, the fact that he's swept away the Canterbury elected regional councillors is now a matter of history, but for him to stand and continually lambast this bill because it undermines accountability, it undermines transparency, whilst at the same time he's handed over 80% of $30 billion of assets to the shadowy stewardship of a group of people that will not be accountable to the public. They will be accountable to these largely unknown, predominantly vague, but vigorously profit-driven entities called council-controlled organisations. So the gulf of credibility between what he says about this bill and what he's actually doing, I think, lays bare his approach to the most sensitive issues confronting us as society. Now, sir, this bill does have legitimacy, and the institution it's creating will be a creature of statute. And the statute will enjoy legitimacy because it will command a majority of the support of this House, the highest court in the land, and the largest form of public domain institutional expression. So to then go on and attack the structure that it lacks legitimacy, I think is not only shallow, but it's actually a very destructive approach to take to these issues. But as I said, Mr. Hyde has sown those seeds, venal though they may be, and they'll be back to haunt him, without a doubt. There is an area of concern that the farming community have raised, but, sir, the farming community in relation to water quality are on shaky ground. They have asked of us as society to buy into their approach that without regulation they are willing to mitigate or diminish the negative effects of farming on the water-based environment. And by and large, we've gone along with that. But the most recent report that actually caused embarrassment to Fonterra, our largest single commercial entity in the country, shows that any farmer attacking this model because of its focus and accent on cleaning up the river needs to go back and stick to the udder, because the farmers have an enormously long way to go before they can regain credibility, in my view, as stewards of the water-based environment beyond cattle. Now, sir, it might be said that this bill could be an impost on the farming community. Well, the farming community derive economic benefit from the use of the water, either the ability of the river and the water to absorb the waste that comes off farmland, or the application of water onto their farmland. And it's not really a free good, because there are expenses and there are costs associated with the interaction of commercial activity called farming and the use of that water resource. So for those who do have influence over the farming community, I would encourage them to advise them that they should get in and support something like this, because it is not designed to strip anyone's rights. It's actually designed to future-proof the ability of the local community, local firms, and the broader Auckland Waikato public to enjoy the benefits reflected in the Waikato River. So the law, as a consequence of this bill being passed, will give status to concepts that we are familiar with on the marae, and concepts that may very well test the analytical powers of the Environment Corp or other consent agencies. But, sir, they are no different from concepts such as intrinsic value. They are no different from expressions such as inherent value. And environmentalism, as reflected in the statute law of New Zealand today, already gives standing to notions of aesthetic value, intrinsic value, and existence value, sir. These are already matters that enjoy standing in the country's jurisprudence. So the fact that that jurisprudence might one day be augmented as a consequence of introducing notions of kaitiakitanga, Māori, mana awa, mana whenua, or scare no one. All it shows is that the cultural mix that the law has to account for is alive and well. And that cultural mix, sir, is not going to cause, from our perspective of the House, any detrimental impact to the daily lives of the people, other than remind them that as we use resources, future generations are calling on us not to destroy the carrying capacity of the resource, to also meet their needs, their interests, and to enable them to live full and meaningful lives by having a rich interaction with the environment. That's what this does. And it does it in such a way it uplifts a group of New Zealanders, the tangata whenua or Waikato-Tainui, who have been marginalised as a consequence of colonialism in the 1800s and 1900s for so long, and it gives them a place of status and standing. So for it to be described either as hocus pocus or an unbearable or a burdensome attack on the economy, I think is short-sighted, and we look forward to supporting this bill. Kia ora tātou.
I call David.